Oh, that was too easy. Hello and welcome to another NihongoGamer video. Hori's got a new arcade stick and you're excited about it, but you don't really know why. We're going to be discussing that and more, but first, let's get it out the box. Now, as you can see here, it's the Fighting Stick Alpha for the Xbox Series S. It's a product by Hori. It's an arcade stick, but this stick is a little bit different to a lot of the previous sticks that they've made. As you can see, one of the main features is that you can, one, change the artwork, but two, you can actually open up the stick and actually get quick access to maintenance. So if you want to change the buttons, if there's a button that's broken, or if the levers needs to be maintained, you need to put some lube on it or something, you can open it up quickly and you can do that right away because this stick opens up, unlike most of the arcade sticks that Hori put out for the PS3 and PS4. And it looks like this stick is basically the spiritual successor to the RAPN, and I think the N actually stands for Noir Layout. So let's go ahead and open it out of the box, shall we? Pull on these tabs here, rip this open. 1, 2, always cut away from you. And it's one of those boxes that instead of like sliding it out, it actually opens up like a briefcase. There we go. Woo! Pull the foam off. We don't need that, and we don't need that. It's got a picture of the stick on the packaging. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There it is. Oh, it's a little shinier than I was expecting on this little plexiglass here. But one thing that looks interesting is that compared to other sticks that came out with changeable artwork covers, this doesn't look like it's a darkened piece of glass. It looks like it's just a plain piece of clear glass. So whatever illustration you put in here is not going to get darkened by the glass. That's quite nice. This is an RAP. It's about this thick, and if you compare it to the Fighting Stick Alpha, oh, it's not much different. Okay, not including the non-slip padding on the base, it's about 2 millimeters slimmer. But for some reason, maybe because of the form factor of the case, it just seems slimmer, maybe because they've extended it out here. So there are a number of things about this stick that I'm actually kind of excited about. One is the fact that you've got more wrist space. I've always kind of preferred sticks that had more space for you to rest your palms, even though generally you're not resting your palms on it too much. You get kind of lazy and you want to rest your hands on it somewhere. It is quite nice to have this palm space here. And also just for artwork, it just looks great to have your own custom artwork on your stick, right? And I think Hori is kind of aware of that with this stick. They've made it very easy to customize and also very easy to maintain because you can pop it open super quickly. So I like that there's a lot of space here to put some really cool designs in. I would love to draw, I've said this before, I would love to draw artwork for this stick and then I always never get around to it. So the main features that are exciting about this stick are, one, it's got the Noir layout. Normally these buttons go a little bit higher, but this is the Noir layout and so it kind of continues to curve around like this. You've got Hayabusa buttons. Ooh, actually sounds not too loud. It does sound quite a bit quieter than the Fighting Edge, which has an aluminium top on it. It's not quiet though, it is loud. And I suspect underneath this plastic here, I expect that it probably is still made of metal underneath. Either way, it's not a very quiet stick, but it's not as loud as the Fighting Edge. It's got a Hayabusa lever, which I'm a big fan of. But the truth is, of all the features you really want to see about this, you just want to see it open up, don't you? So, let's first open up the artwork cover. It looks like there are a couple tabs right here, and I think if I just pull on these, it is not interested in opening. Okay, maybe we need to open up the case first. Pull on this button here, it looks like this allows you to unlock it, and you pull it open. Wow, that's not that smooth. Other sticks have like pneumatic pistons in them, so they kind of open up like the doors of a DeLorean. Ew, gross. Oh, don't want that. Weirdly, like you can't even tell, when you've opened it, you can't really tell which side is the base of the stick anymore. You just get kind of confused. It's just this great big open book. It is the type of stick where you open it up and the maintenance is on the top edge like this. Obviously, if you put it down like this, it'll be resting on the lever, but it looks like it's going to be very easy to maintain. You can just get access to changing out the lever if you want to, or changing out the buttons. Something I didn't notice until now is that actually the cable for this stick is stuck on the inside of the stick. How do I actually connect this stick to my computer? I don't like how close this cable is to the wiring of this because I feel like I'm bumping all the cables of my stick. Usually you're in a hurry when you finish your match in a tournament. You don't want to be like opening up your stick and mucking about with this area here and then accidentally grabbing hold of one of these cables, because these are fairly delicate. I don't feel like this is the sort of place where I want to be doing this like really quickly after a tournament. Cable. I was like, where do I actually have the cable come out of the stick? And I don't know if you can see this, it says cable. It looks like you just sort of close this stick like this, and then that little slot here is where the cable comes out. Let's see if I can get it close enough for you to hear it. Okay, that's reasonable. You do hear the sound of hollow plastic. You don't hear a lot of the metal clunk of a clasp mechanism that sounds like it's built to last. But it is also not the most expensive stick out there. It's also not the cheapest stick. A lot of the Hori RAP sticks that they were pushing the hardest with the like PS4 generation, they were like between $130 to $160, and often they were on sale. This one is retailing for $200, and the main things are easy access maintenance like this, and the ability to change the artwork out quickly. But I'm still trying to figure out how to open this up. There's a screw you have to undo to get the panel off. I am not a fan of sticks that require too much unscrewing, because every time you undo a screw, there's a chance that you're going to lose a screw. All right, screw number 2. Oh my goodness, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 screws just for the artwork panel to be attached on. Screw number 3, screw number 4, screw number 5, and number 6. Okay, ooh, oh. I found 2 more. There's 8 screws for the panel. Are they really afraid of the panel coming off? I'm in the tournament, but the panel came loose. I lost the match because the panel came loose. Well, we finally got it. So that is 8 screws for this. Then you finally get access to the plexi, which is still held in place by all of the buttons. Well, I was going to show you how easy it is to take the plexi off so that you can change the artwork, but after taking 8 screws out, this plexi is still held in place by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 buttons, and then the ball top, which you'd have to take off for this. So I'm actually going to put it back, and we're just going to test the stick. You actually have 4 different profiles, a lot like the Hori Fighting Commander that I checked out in a separate video. Design-wise, I guess all you really need to know is that your options buttons and profile selection buttons and left stick button, right stick button are here on the top, and you've got your options, or your start button rather, over here. This has got a lock switch here, which if you click it to the side, you won't be able to press this in the middle of a tournament and accidentally pause the game, because obviously you'd be disqualified if you did that. It has a little incline like this if you do rest it on your lap and you have it tilted. When you do have it tilted, you still feel this as if it was the same as a right angle. Like this looks like an incline, but it's not enough of an incline that it makes a difference. Like when you've got it resting like this still digs into your wrist just the same as an actual. If this were a complete right angle, it would dig into your wrist at exactly the same. It would feel almost exactly the same. I think this is a headset port, so that you know, if you're playing and you're chatting at the same time, you can use your headset here. It does have handles on the sides, so if you want to hold your stick like this does make actually quite a big difference. Having these handles on the side when you're at a tournament is very, very helpful, because otherwise you gotta like hug your stick like this, or hold it like this. And you know, do you remember like in high school when people would dump your books? Like, I mean, I don't think people are going to be dumping your arcade stick while you're at a tournament, but you do feel like, oh, it's kind of heavy and it's going to slip out like this. But you know what we really need to do? We need to plug it in and actually try it out. So let's plug it into the computer, because I don't actually own an Xbox or a Series X. Alright, I've got Street Fighter up here, and I've got the Hori Fighting Stick Alpha plugged in. The first thing I want to draw attention to is I'm moving around with the stick here on the left to move the controls around. And one thing I've already noticed is that although actually it feels absolutely fine, this is a stick that everyone's all tried before. This is the Hayabusa lever and the Hayabusa buttons. One thing that's different about the Fighting Stick Alpha is that this feels very hollow. Can you hear this? I'm not going to say that that's a bad thing or a good thing, but it does feel quite hollow. And when I'm pressing right like this, you can hear it, it goes click, 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 click. And when you go left, it goes thunk, 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 click, 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 thunk, 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 thunk. I just put the microphone here as close as I can to the stick. It doesn't actually affect your ability to play the game, but it's something that I did notice that feels quite different to all the other Hori controllers that I've used before, because other Hori controllers I've used before, things like the Fighting Edge, a very heavy, it's not very heavy, but it's a heavy-duty stick made out of aluminium, and when you push right, it just feels exactly the same, and it sounds the same, but something I noticed with the plasticky construction of the Fighting Alpha, which is weird because I would have thought like for a new generation of console they'd be going with an extra heavy-duty construction with a really premium feel. This is a very plastically feeling, toyish feeling controller. That may be a good thing, that may be a bad thing, but basically I'm just trying to say it feels different. But when you get down to actually playing the game, it makes very little difference. Like, you can still press all the buttons and it feels like a Hori controller. It also feels a little bit softer, so whereas maybe hitting buttons on the fighting edge, which is the controller I just showed you, maybe that felt like a little harder. This feels a little bit closer to the Mad Catz TE2, which is a controller that isn't made anymore. But actually, if you liked the feel of the Mad Catz TE2 Plus, those sticks, which are, you know, legendary, a lot of people liked them, this feels quite a bit closer to that feel. The Plexi's not super flexy, but it does feel like softer to press buttons, because like when you press the button, it's not just a hard stop, it's a hard stop, and then the Plexi has, I don't know, like 1 nanometer of give, but it is a little bit of give. It's not quite as rigid a structure as something like the Victrix Pro or even the Fighting Edge. If you're nostalgic for the Mad Catz controllers, which they don't make anymore, this might actually be quite nice for you. Now, the main things that are nice about this controller is if you want a Hori stick with a noir layout, this is the newest one that you could... Oops! Disconnected from the game set. I'm not even on the internet. The game just kicked me off the internet, even though I wasn't online. Alright, where was I before the game rudely kicked me out? If you're playing with it level and flat like this, it feels really nice actually. I've got all this palm space, which I'm a big fan of. I like sticks that have palm space over here, because even if you're not supposed to be resting your palms, like, you just do. And also, you know, when you have this hand over here, like, you're not hovering over like you would be on a button box. Like, I mean, personally, I often have my hand just resting here on the Plexi, so I like having all this space here. But what I dislike is when you play it at an angle like this, so if you have it sticking out like this, I really feel this edge here. It doesn't feel like it's an angled edge here. It just feels the same as if this were a right angle, like a 90-degree angle, and that's kind of digging into my wrists when I'm playing at an angle. So if you're the type of person who plays at an angle, you just keep that in mind. You might want to put something soft here to cover this edge here, because or maybe just like sand it down. Also, one thing that's just generally nice is the fact that it's just a larger piece of plastic in general, so that it sits on your lap more solidly. With previous sticks like the Hori RAP, like this one, this was quite a bit smaller, and it's not like it's any less stable or anything, but you do feel like you're able to use less of your lap to hold it nice and flat. I feel like I'm using a good portion of my leg, like the whole part of my leg, to keep this in place, so I quite like the sturdiness of that. Personally, I'm quite used to this noir layout now that I've been playing on the Fighting Edge, so I like the layout of these action buttons here, but I also quite like the position of the options button. Now, on some other sticks, you have to like turn the stick over and you like press random buttons here on the side, and that's actually like fine because it keeps the button out of the way. But personally, I quite like that this button is right here, so I can just go straight into the options menu without having to like search for a button on the side. And the other nice thing is, compared to the RAP range of sticks, like those have like 7 or 8 buttons along the side for touch panel or L3, R3. Those are accessible right here on the front panel of the stick, so that's really nice. Alright. Alright, just moving around here, and I've got to say, in general, there's not a lot to complain about this stick. It's essentially, if you like this noir layout, this stick is probably going to work quite well for you, because it's got Hayabusa lever, Hayabusa buttons, and I like the feel of them on this stick. In fact, it's quite nice to go back to a stick that has, I mean, it's a very, very minor amount of give, but it does feel less impactful when you hit the buttons. And if you're a fan of the matte finish of Hori buttons, you're going to like these. I think also Hori buttons are a little bit more low profile than standard Sunwas, can't remember. I think the only thing about this stick though is that it's $200, and you could be buying yourself the Hori Fighting Edge, which is a nice, like, very solid feeling stick. Like, it feels like a plastic box, and that's, again, I'm not going to say that's a bad thing or a good thing, but it does feel quite hollow, and when I'm like moving, I feel like the whole stick, you can hear the whole stick kind of reverberate. It's not loud, it's just that you feel like the whole stick is shaking when you press buttons on it. Like when you press a button, or when you press down, or when you press left, or you press right. Okay, I can't think of a really good analogy right now, but it's a little bit like the difference between a Duplo block and a Lego block. This feels more like a Duplo block. The main thing I want you to take away from this, though, is that it doesn't actually make you worse at the game or anything. It is something you just get used to and you go, it's like, okay, well, that stick had a quite hollow feel to it, but I can still do all of my buttons and combos in here. Well, I haven't played this character for so long on this stick. This fighting stick Alpha, it does remind me a lot of playing on the Mad Catz TE2 Plus, which is a stick that I think people are quite nostalgic for, and they miss. It's kind of sad that you can't like buy that stick anymore. I don't think it feels exactly the same, but it does feel. I think this is a nice feel for people who want a stick that has less of an impactful hard stop. One last thing I want to check out is the Hori software that you can download for your PC or for your Xbox, and I'm hoping that there will be something similar when there's the PS5 version of this stick, which is coming out soon. As you can see, there's profiles 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if I actually switch the button mapping for something like profile 2 or profile 3, you can actually see here there's a button that I can press that goes 1, 2, I lie. If I go back to the main menu here, if I press the button here, you can go from profile 1 to 2, 3, 4, and the colors are green, red, blue, and light green or teal. According to this, it says mode 1 is for Xbox Series X and mode 2 is for Xbox Series X or Windows 10. And this is what you want to see. How flexible is the button mapping? I'm able to change the arcade stick to be an analog stick or D-pad. It's obviously not an analog stick, it's only a digital pad, but you can choose, some games don't let you choose within the game, so you can choose here whether it's emulating an analog stick. The only other buttons I can do are these two, the left stick button and the left trigger. And if I change it over here to be X, then let's see what happens to the controller in testing mode. Okay, so interestingly enough, it doesn't swap the button. If you use the X button over here on left button, the X button maintains its ability to be the X button. So it's not like they swap. So you can just assign these two buttons to be any function that you want. I was a little bit worried that if you change this to be the X button, that the X button would become the left button, which is what happens on the Hori fighting Commander Octa, but we don't want that to happen because that would be kind of inflexible. Well, there you have it. In terms of button mapping, we really only can assign a different function to these two buttons here on the side. So instead of L button or left trigger, you can set it to be A, B, X, or Y. You can change it to be a direction. So actually, maybe you can do some of the fighting game cheats. You can also just switch the function off entirely, or you can have multiple of the right trigger and right buttons. Alright, I wasn't going to do any more testing, but now that I know that you can set these buttons to directions, which is really uncommon for an arcade stick to be able to do, I want to know if some of those shortcuts that we tried with the Hori fighting pad Octa, let's see if those shortcuts also work to make certain techniques easier using the fighting stick Alpha. So the technique in question is to do what looks like a Shoryuken motion, like this. But if you do it at exactly the right time, you get a special version which gives you better data so that you can do better combos and just use it for important situations in Tekken. But again, I don't really play a lot of Tekken, so it doesn't really matter to me where you would use it or why you would use it. What's important is that it's supposed to be kind of difficult to do consistently. See, this is the LB button, but I've actually set it to input forward directions. And if I press the L trigger, I can set it to do back directions. So if I want to do a Shoryuken motion, normally I would do this. And that would do my Shoryuken motion, but if I want to do a just frame timed version, which is the Electric Wind God Fist, or Electric God Wind Fist, it's Electric Wind God Fist. Normally I would go forward, down, forward, punch. But instead, I'm going to go forward, down, and then press this button, and I instantly get down, forward. So it's looking good so far. I should just be able to go forward, down, and then press these two buttons, and I'll be able to do the move, hopefully. Wait a minute. Oh, that was too easy. Okay, so as I've explained in previous videos before, the reason this is actually a bit harder on a normal arcade stick is because you would go forward, down, and then when you slide to down forward, you need to press a button at the same time. And sliding to this position and pressing this button at the exact same moment is difficult because it's like this is a lateral motion and this is a vertical motion. But as you can see, if I change it, so I split this to forward, down, and then the down forward is just two buttons. Alright, so that is it for unboxing and testing of the Hori fighting stick Alpha. I think this is quite a respectable stick. It's too $100, so you just have to decide whether you think it's worth it for you to get the feature where you can open up the stick and get easy maintenance. That is very convenient, and also the ability to change the artwork, because on most Hori arcade sticks, you're not able to actually change the artwork. For example, like this is aluminum, you would have to get like a sticker that you would paste over here, and getting a sticker printed means you have to find a place that can print stickers that big. But if you want to use just a standard printer, you can just take the plastic off this and put your own artwork in here, and you can do that within a day without having to call up a print shop. So I think that's one of the cool things about this. The other thing is that you can program these two buttons. I was hoping you'd be able to program all the buttons to do anything you want, but it turns out only the left button and the left trigger can be programmed to do other functions, like the buttons over here, or to be directions, which, as you can see, is quite cool for cheating. I mean, it's not really cheating, but it is sort of cheating. I think that's up for debate. But basically, you can do it with the current version of the Hori Device Manager software. But here's my general opinion of the Fighting Stick Alpha. This is not their premium stick. I think if you want the stick that feels really nice and you're just like, oh yeah, I've got a nice stick, I still think that you should probably go and pick up one of these. It's the Hori Fighting Edge. I like this stick quite a lot. But if you want to prioritize the ability to open up the stick and change the artwork, then you should probably go for this. And also, this has the noir layout. Now, the Fighting Edge has the noir layout as well, but if you want the noir layout on a stick which is less wide than the Fighting Edge, because if I should hold them up, you can see that the Fighting Stick Alpha is quite a bit shorter on lengthwise than the Fighting Edge. And compared to the RAP, it's maybe like 2 or 3 centimeters less wide. The thing about the new generation of consoles is that PlayStation has already said if it was a licensed controller for PS4, it will work on the PS5 as well. If you're in a situation where you absolutely need to be playing on a licensed controller for the Xbox Series X, then this is probably one of the only options that you've got right now. And I believe the PS5 version is coming out in maybe like a month or 2. I think this stick is ideal if you don't like the hardness of the aluminum on the Fighting Edge, the size of the Fighting Edge, or sticks that are just really like rigid. This stick is rigid, but it's not as rigid. It's also not as flexy as the Mad Catz TE2. I did say it was similar in feel to the Mad Catz TE2, but it's not quite as squishy. Like the Mad Catz TE2, the plexi had quite a bit of give to it. It's also, like, because of the general plasticky construction, it feels quite hollow. Just dashing left and dashing right feels ever so slightly different. But most people are not going to even notice that. I'm just an audio freak, and so I really pay attention to like the feel, like the reverberation, like it goes back into your hand after you press the directions, like it vibrates the stick, and those vibrations from the stick come back into your hand, and that like changes the feel of the stick for me, but it doesn't change your ability to like play on it. So it just depends on how sensitive you are to stuff like that. If I'm gonna be really honest, I think you would buy this stick if it has a certain feature that other sticks don't have. So 1, the ability to open up conveniently. 2, the ability to change the artwork, and 3, if you like a stick that feels a little bit softer, ever so slightly softer than the full rigid aluminum sticks. Or if you definitely need a stick which is licensed for Xbox Series X and or the PS5 version, which is coming out like in a month. Who I wouldn't suggest this stick for are people who are looking for like a premium Hori stick to upgrade from their previous one, because let's say that you've got the Fighting Edge like this. It's a bit unwieldy, and so it's harder to carry around, but I like the feel, like when you tap left and when you tap right, it feels exactly the same. It feels cheaper, but it costs more, and it's also got certain benefits that only this stick has over others, like the ability to have these 4 separate profiles, which you can program using the Hori Device Manager. There's been recently a large number of makers coming out with really premium looking sticks and really nice designs, and this is basically just another Hori stick, but it has the benefit of being able to open. But even when you open it, the cable tie for the cable, it kind of, you can't really see, but I've already pinched this blue cable which is connecting to this wire. If I had actually tied this a little bit too tight, it could have actually like snapped this blue cable here. Like just design wise, there are a few things that make you go like, why did you design it like that? Just from a sort of user experience point of view, did anyone actually try doing this? Opening this like this, and then trying to cable, like what position is this actually comfortable? How do I do it without getting it caught on that blue wire there, which is quite important? And the most important thing about the stick, which I forgot to mention, is it has non-slip padding. Partially. on the bottom. I don't know why they didn't just put non-slip padding all over the bottom. Like, is this really a challenge for arcade stick makers to just put padding all over the bottom? Is that really that difficult? Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you've enjoyed this unboxing and quick look at the Hori fighting stick Alpha for Xbox Series X, and apparently there's a PS5 version coming out very soon. If you'd like to see more videos on arcade sticks, fighting games, and all that jazz, remember to subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitch if you'd like me to see me live. Often I use these sticks that I receive so I can actually try them out on stream, so do check me out on Twitch. If you'd like to join us on Discord, we're often talking about gear in the NihongoGamer Discord, and I often put notifications for when the streams go live on Twitter, so check me out at NihongoGamer. That's all for today. I will see you in the next NihongoGamer video.